You're listening to Infoverity's Trust Us podcast, where you can gear up for your data management journey with bite-sized discussions on industry trends and thought leadership. On each episode, we'll feature industry experts to help you navigate your path to mastering your enterprise data. Welcome back to the Trust Us podcast. Today, we'll be talking to Kal Roemer on what an AI strategy is. So we'll get into things such as what you should consider when you're building your AI strategy, trends in the industry, use cases and examples, how to get started on your journey, and how Infoverity can help you. Kal, welcome to the podcast. Would you like to take a moment to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, of course. And thank you so much for having me, Jocelyn and Taylor. Been a fan of the podcast for a while and excited to be on. So a little bit about myself. Been with Infoverity for going on 7 years now, and joined the organization as a data scientist, and really hoping to help the industry at large move up the maturity curve in the broader analytics space. I've spent a lot of time in the world of enterprise data management, largely because of where the industry was at when I was starting my career. It hasn't always been easy. There haven't always been good product offerings that enabled the average enterprise organization to get to the space of advanced analytics and some of the cool AI applications you see out on the market now. And so it really is a fun time of being at kind of the intersection of decades of AI research, as well as growth in enterprise software and platforms that support the average company being able to drive value with AI technology.
We're so glad that you're here. Couldn't ask for a better subject matter expert on today's topic. Thank you again for joining us. Let's dive right in. So, can we start by talking to our listeners about what is important for them to consider when they're building their AI strategy?
For sure, and obviously this has been on every board's radar for the past couple of years since the explosion of ChatGPT and all of the great LLM and et cetera AI applications in the modern world. Over the past couple of years, I think we've kind of observed three different profiles of companies. Areas where people have gotten either severely overinvested or severely underinvested. And then you also have plenty of organizations in kind of an analysis paralysis given how fast things are moving. So I think, when considering the overall approach to AI strategy within an organization, it really needs to start with your DNA. So what are your use cases? Where are your pain points in your organization? And working backwards from there to start thinking about how AI might be best targeted at solving those issues. I think it's also very important to be planning on your roadmap for some incremental ROI in your growth up the AI maturity curve. It's not something that happens in one day. And it's really important to show that you can make progress along the way to your ideal AI future.
It's a great response, Cal. And you talk about this maturity curve, and it sounds like there's a lot of groundwork that needs to be laid before an organization can consider itself to be truly prepared for the implementation of AI. Could you explain some of the things that an organization would have, some of those traits that would, have them say, we're ready to implement some form of AI?
For sure. So, I mean, just starting with the basics in terms of data maturity overall, you think about any company these days is a company that relies on data, whether it's just operationally understanding how you're performing, et cetera. So, at the very first steps into the AI maturity curve are, can you manage your data effectively? Can you get it into your users' hands that need that data to perform their job functions? And then can you start asking questions about your organization to potentially improve your performance? So where that looks like for a lot of organizations is basic analytics, things like reporting on your sales numbers, understanding things like your supply chain, logistics, et cetera. Once companies are able to do some of these basic data functions, we see them stepping up the maturity curve into areas where they try to maybe expand the usage of data. So what's foundational to that type of activity is not only having a strong technology base, being on the most modern platforms, but all of the organizational efforts that are necessary around enterprise data management. So this is having well-governed data in an organization that is making sure that we're constantly improving data, increasing the quality, increasing the general trust in our data and data products within an organization, and making sure that we do all of the groundwork to provide our future AI solutions with the best quality data. This means mastering core domains of data within your organization, as well as making sure all the reference data necessary for these AI models is well prepared, available, and can be fed downstream to AI applications.
Perfect. That's so helpful for our listeners to understand and plot themselves on that maturity curve and to maybe plot some aspirations within their strategic goals for where they want to take themselves. I think what also might help our listeners is to perhaps talk through a practical use case. So we understand how you can get started with an AI strategy. We understand some of the traits of organizations that are prepared. Can we talk a little bit about an example of what this looks like in practice? Specifically, I'm thinking of some of what we've talked about in the past about anomaly detection.
Sure. Yeah. I love diving into AI in terms of specific applications and use cases because it's such a complex topic that really requires, I think topical examples to understand how AI can affect your business. So broadly, when I think of the anomaly detection problem, we're considering a use case of understanding what your data looks like, being able to identify when data deviates from the norm. You can start understanding where that applies in any kind of industry that you're working in, whether you're a healthcare company or insurance company trying to make sure that claims are processed efficiently and not denied for improper reasons. Maybe you're a financial company or any company dealing with your financial data, making sure that you're identifying potential areas of fraud. There's many applications in the manufacturing space. Can we start identifying anomalies in our heavy equipment or assembly lines using IoT data? So really, this is a broad problem with a lot of different applications, and even within the category of AI solutions, this could look very different for different applications or specific types of data. So what we've started to observe is maybe a change in how companies approach the anomaly detection problem, given some of the abilities of AI. Traditionally, we have been a very people-driven workforce where any kind of anomaly would need to be identified and really corrected by a human. And now we can start enabling the humans that are a part of any kind of remediation process dealing with an anomaly, whatever that may look for your business, and start enabling them to do things like observe patterns that are much easier for a machine to identify. So that is kind of where we start with that problem. And again, it really looks a little bit different depending on what industry you're working in and what your data is.
That's excellent insight. Thank you, Kal. So it's no secret that AI is one of news's biggest buzzwords. It's everywhere. We see it all the time. And you've just gone through a lot of really good strategies and methodologies for integrating AI strategy into your organization. But where do these different market trends intersect with some of those methodologies? And what should our listeners understand about some of those market trends?
Sure. So, given that we're recording this podcast on January 31st, 2025, anybody who is glued to the news this week probably saw things about DeepSeek, one of the new leading AI models out there in the world in the LLM space, as well as the associated, trillion-dollar market run associated with technologies. I think that this was very indicative of trends that aren't necessarily new, but news cycles maybe reaching a broader audience. What was really at the core of this market correction related to DeepSeek was seeing a trend of more targeted and I would even say smaller AI. To further explain that, there's a study that I've been quoting nonstop since I first read it in 2023 called "Textbooks Are All You Need." And going back to what we said about having a strong core of good quality data, that's essentially what this study was based on. And it proved that using textbook data, so what we would, all agree is good quality, high level information rather than, say, large volumes of internet data that's not necessarily true. Using textbook data, we were able to train AI models that produced similar performance metrics to some of the big leading models like ChatGPT and other models in the industry. So what this is showing us is that all of these mentions of billion, $1 trillion investments into AI can be kind of targeted by smaller companies based on the hypothesis that a small amount of good quality data can also be effective to train AI on a much smaller scale. So to kind of summarize, where I see the trend going in AI is much more targeted use cases by industry within specific companies, being able to take a maybe foundational AI model and train it to utilize your data, tune it with your data internally so that you don't need to be investing in that new nuclear power plant to train a big model that costs $1 trillion.
So, with all of this said, this is a lot of information. How can Infoverity help our listeners with this expansive journey?
For sure. So it all goes back to the maturity curve. So being able to look into your organization internally and determine where are we at in the maturity curve, I think is very important. And that's an assessment that we can help your company with and help you upfront in terms of planning your AI strategy. There may be steps we need to take along the way, whether it is better management of data, mastering of data, setting up a governance organization that can help us move the needle down the maturity curve for preparing data for AI use cases. Plenty of organizations are ready to start today with the basics of AI. So, we can help you understand where to start, whether it's simple prompt engineering or enhancing your day-to-day workflows with AI-enhanced business intelligence tools like text to SQL or even text to visualization that can really expand the number of data users and open up new tools to less data literate individuals within a company. When it gets to the point of actually diving in, we love to help companies prove out initial concepts of where AI might be available. Back to that point of targeted AI, smaller investments, we can use tools that are out there today to help expedite the first steps into AI and start looking at a problem like anomaly detection within your organization and say, could AI be a valid solution that can actually save us dollars or make us more dollars in the future?
That's great. And so I'm thinking about everything that we've just talked through in the past 15 minutes or so, Kal. And I think perhaps I would summarize it like this. Tell me if you think this resonates with you.
Yep.
First and foremost, there are different places where listeners might find themselves on the AI maturity curve, and they might be overinvested, underinvested, or they might not know what to do at all, and they might just be completely stuck. Really, where you need to focus your attention are what are the use cases for your organization, and how can you plan incremental delivery of return on investment? Which really aligns with some trends that we're seeing in AI that are much more targeted by use case and by industry. As you plan your roadmap, really, I think what our listeners can expect to start with is maybe some basic data functions. They can expand the usage of that data and really continue into mastering that data and ensuring that their reference data is correct. And this journey is really one area where Infoverity in particular can help, working with our listeners to determine where they are on their journey and how to get to the next step based on their strategic objectives. I think what's really interesting is something that you described relative to one use case that's pretty extensible to any industry, which is anomaly detection. And this could be just identifying where data deviates from a given norm. And again, that's really applicable for any company in any industry. So I think what I've heard here is a really good primer on what the trends are in this space, how to think about getting started, and what you should really be prioritizing. Do you feel that that resonates with you?
Yeah, 100%. And, I think if anything, I hope that what we've talked about encourages organizations. We may be into the second year of this AI boom, but just because you may not have been able to dive into AI from day one doesn't mean you're behind or out on this AI race. There are plenty of ways to start looking at the AI problem and build your data strategy to enable you to target those solutions in the future. And the common adage that I like to quote is AI today is the worst that it'll ever be. So adopting down the line, we're only going to see more mature platforms, more performant models, and more cost-effective ways to leverage AI for your benefit.
That's really encouraging, and I hope that that really inspires our listeners to not delay getting started. There's no time like the present, and starting early is always a good place to be.
Yep, absolutely. And thanks again for having me on. It's been a blast, and always welcome the next conversation about AI and data management.
We're so grateful for your insights, Kal. Thank you, and I'm sure you'll be back to talk in more detail about AI.
Yep.
Of
Thank
course,
you
of
very much,
course.
Kal.
Thank you.
For more than a decade, Infoverity has been established as an industry-leading consultancy specializing in solving enterprise data management business problems with best-in-class technical solutions. Our firm has consultants located around the globe with headquarters in Columbus, Ohio, and Valencia, Spain. If you'd like to learn more about how we can help you, please visit our website at infoverity.com. We've also included additional contact information in the show notes.